Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Debbie Turner-Bell. In the news today, immigration standoff. U.S. President Barack Obama visits Texas and meets with Governor Rick Perry, but stops short of visiting the border. And while lawmakers don't agree on Obama's methods, can they agree on his plan? Also, violence escalates in the Mideast as Palestinian militants unleash their most powerful rocket attacks ever. And Israel counters with airstrikes that send the Palestinian death toll climbing. And making the grade, what will it take to train female Marines to fight alongside men in ground combat? We will have that and a lot more right now on Arise America.
From coast to coast, every culture, every angle. This is Arise America.
U.S. President Barack Obama is in Texas one day after asking Congress for nearly $4 billion to deal with the influx of unaccompanied Central American children crossing the border. The president met in Dallas with local officials and faith leaders who are concerned about the growing humanitarian crisis. President Obama is enforcing an anti-trafficking law enacted under the George W. Bush administration. Yet many congressional Republicans demand immediate deportation of the minors. The crisis is becoming political. Texas GOP Senator Ted Cruz criticized the president's agenda today during a congressional hearing.
He's visiting Democratic fat cats to collect checks, and apparently there's no time to look at the disaster, at the devastation that's being caused by his policies.
But we should never forget, these are children. They are now in our custody. It is our duty to make sure that these children are cared for properly.
This crisis puts immigration on the political center stage. Earlier, I spoke with Arise News senior political analyst James Carville, who is in New Orleans. James, it's always good to talk to you. I think I want to start with the news of the day. President Obama visited Texas today. There was a lot of conversation about his invitation to do a photo op with Governor Rick Perry, which Governor Perry turned down, but invited him to do a private meeting. And then, of course, many Republicans were calling on President Obama to visit the border, which the White House said he would not do. So my first question to you, is that a mistake? Should he have gone to see the border today?
I think it is. And not just Republicans are calling on him to do that. Democrats are also doing it too. You know, here in the United States, we kind of expect the president to show up when there's like a bad event, a big event like this is. President Bush learned that during Hurricane Katrina. I think President Obama learned it during the BP oil spill. I'm sure there are good reasons that, you know, why they don't, but it's a kind of an expected thing. And there's a lot of Democratic moaning to go with the Republicans on this one, I think.
Yeah, I think I want to talk about this political issue because that's certainly what immigration reform is going to be now through the election cycle.
It is.
Let's start with just the general broad strokes. Which side has the most to lose by getting this wrong?
I think the Republicans do, and I think the Republicans know that. You know, a lot of them wanted, clearly a majority of the House wants it, not a majority of the Republicans. But remember, you had that special election in Virginia where the majority leader, Eric Cantor, was defeated in a Republican primary by a guy who ran pretty much on an anti-immigration platform against Cantor. Other Republican politicians saw that, and they've now said there's not going to be anything that's going to get done on this issue between now and Election Day. I think most Republicans would agree that's not the exact position they wanted to be in going to the election of 2016.
And does that put some pressure then on the leadership there, particularly on Capitol Hill, to get something done? As we all know, President Obama has asked Congress for almost $4 billion to be able to address this issue. It was met with lukewarm reception by John Boehner, but aren't they sort of under the thumb to do something?
I mean, in one sense they are, but remember, most of these Republicans are afraid of a Republican primary. It's a little bit, the dynamic is a little bit different than 2016, and their people are telling them, you know, no immigration, no anything. And, you know, I think they're going to have to appropriate some more money, but they'll probably put a bunch of ridiculous conditions on it or something like that. But this is a much tougher. All the Democrats are united. We want Democrats want immigration reform. The Republicans are more divided. And this is a very tricky issue for them. Now, separate this from these children, which is a very tricky issue for the president. And I'm sure it's not anything that he really enjoys dealing with because it's a very serious issue.
Yeah, it indeed is a very serious issue. And seeing all these pictures, the optics are very troublesome. Seeing all these young children coming across the border by themselves or sometimes with a parent. And then the impasse between those who say they're here illegally and should automatically be deported and those that say they should be treated compassionately. Where's the balance, do you think, here, James?
Well, you know what? If I had that kind of wisdom, I wouldn't be a political consultant. I'd be something way above that. The human being side of you and the tragedy, and this is with these criminal gangs and drug laws down in Guatemala and places like that, and parents are trying to get their children out of that. And by the same token, how can you process that many people? It's a very, very difficult problem. I have great empathy for the people that are trying to solve it, and I just, it is a delicate issue, and it's a very tough issue for the United States right now.
James, drill down just a little bit. Help us all explain better. The New York Times recent poll back in May said 46% of Americans said the U.S. should welcome all immigrants, compared to just 19% who said the country can't afford to open its doors to newcomers. Well, with that in mind, with that kind of public sentiment, why can't Washington get anything done when it comes to immigration reform? Because
the people that don't want it reside in Republican districts, and it's a kind of an odd system where but if say in Louisiana, in the 1st District of Louisiana, if you're for immigration reform, you're going to lose a Republican primary. That means you're going to lose a general election. And the people also that are against this are very sort of emotional about it and very fired up about it. I mean, we saw Senator Marco Rubio, who was considered to be very much of a strong presidential candidate right after 2012. He came out for a version of immigration reform, and now he's almost literally being written off by everybody in the Republican Party. So it's a really tough issue for them. But the Democrats are united behind this kind of immigration reform, and as are a considerable number of Republicans, but I don't think they carry the day within their own party with that.
Yeah, indeed. Some say, particularly Republicans, that the president could stop this onslaught right now by enforcing immigration laws that, quite frankly, in many cases, George W. Bush put into place, and directing Homeland Security to crack down on asylum fraud. Is this just a political soundbite, or is there some truth here to this?
Well, I mean, look, everything is politics. I mean, you're coming into a congressional election here in November, early November of this year, and we're already into the presidential cycle of 2016. The Republicans have blamed President Obama for everything that you can imagine. I don't think there's a serious policy person that believes that he had anything to do with this crisis. And but I think the fair criticism of him is he should have gone down to the border and engage people and talk to them. And people like, as you use the word optics, they like the optic of the president being sort of involved in getting a report from the ground. The president would probably say, I would divert a lot of resources. I can do this thing from Washington better. But I think there's some political damage here that he's suffering as a result of this.
One more thing before I let you go, James. You already mentioned this when Eric Cantor lost his primary. Many thought that, of course, immigration was gone for quite some time, and probably wouldn't be on the agenda in the new session come later on this year. Do you think if we continue to see these images, particularly of these kids flooding into the country, does that force it back onto the congressional agenda?
People you got to come up with a solution to it, and no one has a real solution. And I think the public is sort of appalled that we haven't to turn these children back. At the same token, I don't know how we could, the federal government can't be a parent, or, they don't have the facilities for this. It's a really, really, tragic human problem that it is, which I don't think there's a good solution. And one of the things about attacking on it is that you have to come up with a solution, and then over a long period of time, there probably isn't a good one, over a period of time, other than the fact that they got to try to help in these countries where these parents feel like their children are safe there.
Right, you're right. You are right. It's tough no matter how you slice it. James Carville, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. You bet. Always.